Hello, everyone. So I'm going to introduce or get us started here in a second, but write in the chat where you are in the world right now, if you don't mind. Where are you calling in from? Long Beach, Portland. I should know all these by now. Yale's in Richmond, Larchmont, on a roof and over the Rhine. Gorgeous.
Mm.
So I see mainly familiar faces here, but I'm going to just give us a quick reminder of what our hour is like in case we have any of you who've forgotten or are new to this potent hour. So this is Mindful Poetry Moments, and we essentially come together, ground ourselves with a meditation. We are we consider a poem. These poems have been selected by Yaley, our poet laureate in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Rimmel, our youth poet laureate. You're going to meet Yaley in a second. And then we have a guest who Yaley will introduce to us today, who's going to talk about the poem, have us think about the poem, and then ultimately will give us a prompt. We'll write for some minutes, usually around 10. We come back and we share. We hear the poem again, and then we say goodbye to one another. And then we have other layers that we do with the poem that we'll tell you about a little bit later. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Yaley. And Yaley, you can introduce a little bit about the poems this month and then introduce our guest, please.
So, welcome everyone. I'm so happy to be here and celebrating another week of mindful poetry moments with you all. Myself and Rimmel, the Youth Poet Laureate of Cincinnati, spent some time thinking during the winter about poems that represent manifold expressions of identity, particularly stories and narratives rooted to the individuals and to the communities that they represent in their writing. And so we're so thrilled to have such a wonderful sampling of poems, among them poems from Joy Harjo and Nikki Giovanni. And this week, we'll be looking at a poem from Carlina Duan. And before I get to the poem and the facilitation of the poem and the grounding meditation, I'd like to introduce my friend Samyak Shertok, who will be leading the facilitation today. And so Samyak Shertok's poems appear in Best New Poets, Blackbird, the Cincinnati Review, Gettysburg Review, Gulf Coast, the Iowa Review, KR Online, New England Review, Shenandoah, Waxwing, and elsewhere. A finalist for the National Poetry Series, the Agnes Lynch Starrett Poetry Prize, and the Jake Adam York Prize. He has received fellowships from Aspen Words, the Vermont Studio Center, and the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown. Originally from Nepal, he holds a PhD in literature and creative writing from the University of Utah and is currently a Hughes Fellow in creative writing at Southern Methodist University. And I was just sharing earlier that it's such a pleasure and a gift to think about people that you'd love to be a part of Mindful Poetry Moment and for them to accept the invitation on the first go. And I'm so grateful that Samyak accepted the invitation. He's someone that I got to know at Vermont Studio Center, where we're both fellows in poetry in the summer of 2019. And since then, it's just been a pleasure and a joy to see his writing in the world, and not only see his writing in the world, but to hear him talk about literature and the sensitivity and attentiveness with which he approaches writing and communing with the world through poetry. So without further ado, I would like to virtually hand the stage over to my dear friend, Samyak Shertok. Thank you again for accepting the invitation.
I'm going to jump in really quickly. So before we turn it over to Samyak, I'll do a quick.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll do I'm going to do the grounding meditation. Stacy from the well, Bryce from the well, and then we'll turn it over to Samyak. So let's all wiggle around a little, wiggle around a little. look around a little, reorient yourself to where you are in this moment. Perhaps taking special attention to find the ground underneath you, maybe even touch it, even if that's just your chair. And then we're going to go inward. I always like to close my eyes. It's not necessary. You can keep a nice soft focus. But take a few breaths to feel yourself arrive. Every exhale, allow yourself to settle a little bit more into the space of here. You might also begin to notice the rhythm of the breath. And in the vernacular of, I would say, the kind of science of breath in the nervous system, whether we're talking indigenous ancient science and wisdom or more contemporary, the inhale is everything that's possible. The exhale is the resting, digesting, and integrating. So feel the rise and fall just from the breath. Every moment can be new and grounded. And for a moment, find in your own body the sensation of something that's new, something possible, a tiny epiphany. Perhaps reflecting on a moment where something shifted from the ordinary to the new. Dr. Dan Siegel calls this homeostasis, this place of balance, as the plane of possibility. The emergent, the generative. So let's rub our palms together. I always like this as a transition, and I also feel like in this moment it's like, let's get ready to make some work. Perhaps covering your eyes, massaging your eyes back open to one another, and in particular, Samyak, who's going to lead us through this really beautiful poem.
Thank you, Stacy. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Samyak. I was lucky enough to be Yeli's friend and be invited for this. And Since today's theme is the possible, I think it would be a remiss if I did not thank the people who made this possible to begin with. So Yeli, Stacy, Bryce, Noel, and of course, all the wonderful folks present here. Of course, without you, I'd just be mumbling to myself. Well, I guess 2-3 other people. So thank you. And today's poem's the possible. And I will start by reading the poem. And the poem will be up on the screen in a bit. And we'll have a brief discussion. But at some point, I would like you to find the poem online and have on the side of your screen or somewhere to look at. Because I will be referring to some specific things, and Bryce will have the details of the poem on the screen. So if you need to refer to it afterwards, that'd be wonderful. We're all good to go? Yeah? Okay, wonderful. Bryce? Possible by Carlina Duan. Now my dress smells like rain, and all day long, I have been eager to get back to my book, a novel about a young couple making pasta and falling into one another's skin. An Irish novel with names of cities that clunk around in my mouth, cities I had never heard of, but now ride my skull like pleasant, individually wrapped candies. Words with strange cactus-like shapes, words I star, Sligo, Caricla. I turn the page, my mind goes stick, stick, stick. My brain goes hungry for more. Today, I run through the rain in my wooden clogs and pleasure at the sound, thump, 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 the entire green world of a street flashing down an open sewer drain. So alive, I think, then remember what else makes me possible. Public libraries, cartilage, a good hardcover, a prayer I overhear my cab driver mumble while passing by a full school bus, goosebumps I get from reading my old journal, one sentence, another. My heart is a skull zone. Did I really write that? And oh, I am possible again. I am a fragrant, silly self. Today, I thank the worms who eat the dirt, who break down the soil, who make the lilacs possible and young. Forever purpling, forever cradled in my palms as I cross Blakemore Avenue, and it rains, 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 and I think about eating up the alphabet, which has made a city into a word, into a sound. Sligo, which slides slinky-like into my brain, the dear alphabet, which has made me into a woman, will cross the street and love the lilacs and treasure the strange turn of the day, the strange turn of a word, a sentence, a curve, and a stroke. A word, a sentence, a curve, and a stroke of black ink that, thank you, brought me here. Thank you, Bryce, the poem. Wonderful. So first I want to begin by just asking all of you what possible means to you. What is to be possible? What does the word possible mean to you? And when I say to you, I really mean to you, right? Not in general sense. And you can jump in anytime. I guess I was told some people can do the chat thing. Whatever is preferable to you, you can step in at any time. What does being possible mean to you?
I'll like to jump in. I'm Barbara. The first thing that comes to me is hope. that possible makes me think of hope. And I feel like, you know, I have to read through this poem again, but just the mention of gardens and worms and all those things, it's, you know, that's like believing in the future and, and being hopeful for it.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Barbara. Ellen?
Hi, yeah, I just appreciate the reminder to, you know, just there's this childlike kind of wonder in this poem that I know in my day-to-day life, I often forget, you know, just, you know, stumbling across a word that just, you know, conjures so much that you have no idea, like a place name like Sligo. You have no idea perhaps where that is, or, but it's just the sound of the word, you know, just takes you somewhere. I really appreciate that.
Ellen, I think you touched on a bunch of great things. You mentioned wonder, you mentioned childhood or innocence, and sound, right? And for some reason, it quickly reminds me of, you know, Wordsworth's lines, the child is the father of the man, and I wonder, lonely as a cloud. Of course, that's a different kind of wonder, but I think that both wonder and wonder happen in this poem. And I guess since we're already moving into the poem, we can also look at the poem, and I think Bryce has the poem on the link if you need to refer to the poem at some point. But again, we can also just, we can go into the poem or also just talk about ourselves just for a bit as well. I think I saw a hand up here with, well, name's Bryce Kesper. But you know who raised hand earlier, please go. Was it Elena?
Oh, I just wrote, hi, how are you? I just wrote under the pseudonym BK. Possible is an open door where there was none. So I
That's
always
beautiful.
think that possible is the opposite of impossible.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
An open door, right? Or perhaps even the door itself, right? Because if there's a door, there's always a possibility that we can open it, right? At some point. That's beautiful.
I like how you evolved it. I love that. I can
thank
almost
you.
see it, a door in a sky. Beautiful.
That's wonderful. Natalie?
What was coming to me with everyone in the poem was the word possible feels like me. That possible is I am, and all that lives in the possibilities of within the I am of myself. So that came to be.
That's very profound. I am, right? I think one implicit thing in that phrase is that just to be able to say I am, that too is a possibility realized, right? That too is an utterance of power, utterance of affirmation, right? That's wonderful. I am. Wow. Hey, you could, when we do the poem exercise, you could easily end your poem with I am. I'm already thinking of the prompt, but I think that would be a wonderful line. I see a bunch of in the chat. I think I'm not so good at multitasking, so I'm just gonna. Those who are very dexterous, you can refer to the chat responses as well. But forgive me for just limiting myself to the voices I hear. So if you feel comfortable, just share your thoughts at any time. Troy?
I loved that, Natalie, because there's something, maybe it's the prompt from Stacy's meditation that started me thinking this way. There's something about the possible that can feel like suffering if it's like a backlog of all, it becomes like a bunch of to-dos, like what ifs, only ifs. And when it starts to feel generative, the way everybody here's talking, it's like that saying yes to it. So somebody earlier said impossible or possible. Like it's like saying yes to it, like, oh, this is, and so that I am part sticks out to me. I love the line of the poem. What is it? I'm a skull, my heart is a skull zone. In that line, did I really write that? It's just a way of saying like, oh, I'll say yes to what's arising, and that starts to make it feel possible rather than who knows if it's possible or it's impossible. There's something about the yes,
Right.
kind of echoing what Natalie's saying.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Troy. I think the yes, right? I think I am and the yes, adore. I think those are all just amazing iterations of possible. And I was also going to mention the line you referred to, my heart is a skull zone. Did I really write that? Right? There's some sort of like surprise with one's own past self, right? And we mentioned wonder earlier. So I think there's someone like, oh, wow. And I think she mentions my old journal, right? So my old self wrote something like that. So I think there's also something beautiful about that kind of wandering to a different self that was in the past. Absolutely.
So I think of possible, I think of movement that's mediated by safety and freedom. And so I think for me to feel possible, I have to feel free or have some engagement with not being held back, and also to feel safe to do that. And so I think that's what I think when I think of possible, those two things coming together and kind of working in tandem to move forward.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Yeli. Right. Right. We want to, right. There's always this unknown component, right? Like we want to take some risks, right? But at the same time, if it feels unsafe, right? I think there's definitely some real problem, right? That needs to be addressed first, right? So I love the juxtaposition of the two, that both are necessary. And so going to the poem, I'd been warned that time flies really fast, and I see it really flying. Going to the poem, back to the poem, I wanted to look at places where you feel what parts in the poem that the speaker mentions that makes it possible, that really resonates with you.
I like and I think about eating up the alphabet.
Right. Wait, do you want to say more? Like why, what about it strikes you?
Well, there's kind of a cadence to the language, and ABCs, I can feel this like progression kind of rhythm to it. And it's nonsensical, which fits the silliness that's present and in what could be a serious topic. It's kind of celebratory, and there's something of the child. If you ever had those alphabet magnets, there's something about eating of the alphabet that is just feels right.
Right. And in some ways, I mean, every sound is the breath we take in and breath that comes out, right? I mean, it is an exhale, biologically speaking, but it is the breath we have taken in. So in that way, we are taking it in, we are eating it, right? Mark Strand has this beautiful poem about eating poetry, where he talks of like the inks dripping from the sides of my mouth. This is the greatest pleasure. I'm eating poetry. I think there's a nod to that poem here. And right, there's a lot of love for language. What else stands out for you, Sarah?
Does Sarah C want to go first? I don't know which Sarah you're referring to, but I think she was first.
I think the
I'm not
other
sure if having
Sarah
trouble
might
earlier.
still be muted, so I think it's
Okay.
you for now.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about the, I feel like actually what Yali said opened up something for me about safety, because I feel like this person is just bubbling out with ideas, and she's in a very safe, happy, joyful place, which I think you only can have that kind of perspective when you're extremely safe. I think of like my little niece who is in the most nurturing environment. My sister has set up this incredible home for her and lifestyle, like system of caregivers and stuff. And it just, this person feels like a brand new niece, just like bursting out with giggles and safety. And she's, everything that's coming out of her mind, it's almost like a stream of consciousness. And so there's like letters, and then there's lilacs, and then there's a vision of a woman crossing a street, and everything seems so not necessarily connected, but uniquely like just bursting with delight. And that to me is somehow evoking the word possibility for me. And I can't explain why. I think Wade said that earlier too. We can't explain why. It's infinite. There's not necessarily any words for it. And I think this is almost like a, talk about form versus content. This is like the content of that. Yeah.
That's wonderful, Sarah. I think the keyword, one of the keywords here for me is stream of consciousness, right? And I think when we're all like ecstatic, right? When we're like really joyful, regardless of what the occasion is, like when we are like carefreely, like absolutely happy, like everything kind of like becomes very fluid, right? Like we connect with, like we even want to hug the strangers, like, or like I don't know, sometimes, like, I mean, my recent memories when I was passing my PhD exams, and then after I finished my oral, like I was at a beach, Provincetown, and I went to the beach and I was just singing and dancing like loudly to myself. So like, absolutely, I think this is stream of consciousness, and she's also literally wondering, right? She, even though it does not track real, every line doesn't track her movement, she is moving in rain, right? She's, she begins by talking about, now my dress smells like rain, and then later there are moments when it says rain, rain, rain. So she's, yeah, in a way, she's definitely in this joyful, ecstatic mode in the poem. And at the same time, while that real time thing is happening, she's reaching out to all these things, novels, stories, cities that she does not know, and also her childhood, right? This bus driver that says prayer, and all these things kind of like, I think of this form also as like a constellation, right? Like it's kind of like a night sky, wonderful night sky, where we can reach out to any star, any constellations at the same time, and just be amazed by the wonder, just the endless, infinite beauty of the night sky, right? And sometimes joy feels that way, and I think obviously joy can be connected, and I think should be connected to the possible. I wonder, we might be out of time for discussion. I see two parental figures nodding their heads at me to move on. So we'll thank you all for your inputs. We'll go ahead to move toward the prompt. The prompt slightly long, but don't be scared. It's if anything, it's meant to give you lots of options and help you. So really the prompt is, this is, I think Sarah mentioned a stream of consciousness, and the prompt is for a list poem, right? I want you to think of all the things that make you possible, whatever possible means. I want you to focus on really small things. Sometimes people think of like poetry and the poet as like, oh, this big truth teller of the universal and such. And that's true, but I also think really most of the time the poet is the god of small things, the things that no one else sees and hears. Those are the things we have the responsibility to see and hear and touch and feel. So I want you to focus on really small things, whatever makes you possible, right? In the smallest sense of the word. Maybe it's a tiny wildflower growing by the sidewalk. Maybe it's a small act of kindness a stranger did to you at some point. Could be anything, right? I was drinking a cup of tea, and this teacup is a gift from a special one. And for me, this cup of tea is also a thing that makes me possible. The tea that I drink every morning wakes my day, and I drink all day, right? So list can be as long and as short as you want. Again, I want to emphasize the focusing on the small things. And one suggestion is to begin the poem by saying a phrase from the poem we looked at today. Today I thank, and that could be the beginning of the poem. And you can go anywhere. It's a list poem, so you don't have to worry about the narrative, the flow, anything. Just you move from thing, to person, to nature, to universe, wherever you want to go. That's all up to you. Nothing is impossible in this prompt. With that, Stacy, is it a good time to
Perfect.
let
I'm going
people
to
write?
set a timer for 10 minutes and I'll let everyone know when we're a couple minutes out. And I can't wait to see you all back and hear your beautiful words. So let's come toward the end of your beautiful list. And we'll turn it back over to Samyak to call on those of you who wish to read. So if you could raise your hand in the Zoom room by finding at the bottom the reaction button and clicking on raising your hand. And we'll also try to keep an eye on the chat if for some reason you're struggling to raise your hand. Samyak, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Stacy. Oh, I see a bunch of hands already. Janet, you seem to be the first. Janet M.
Hi, thank you. Today I thank the morning sun for spilling over onto the surface of the ocean, the opening of the rose's petals, the exhale of my breath, the ability to watch a spider connect the threads of its web, the dew that threatens to drop from the edge of a birch leaf, the gentle clashing and separating of cloud animals, the ant that carries a kernel of sand over the hills of grass, the pages of a book, the whisper of the breeze rounding cliffs, the tea that unfurls in my cup, the first lick of a mother owl on her chick's head, the sweetness of a crack being fixed, the moonlight beneath my feet. Thank you.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. I love the poem so much. I could spend the whole rest of session talking about it, but in the interest of time, I'll just say my favorite was the mother owl's lick. Never thought of a bird licking, which is always a pleasure to learn new language. That's wonderful. Thank you, Janet. I see Bryce, Troy, and then Natalie in that order. Bryce, the one with a headboard in the background, because all the names are Bryce. I think you're still muted. Oh, did you disappear? Oh, no, you're here. Oh, there you go.
Today I think chocolate, the breath of my lungs, moving smoothly in and out, the sound of the fly buzzing on the other side of the window screen, the way our eyes meet and we laugh, already knowing the thought we each just had, the way your love makes me dauntless, the way a Taylor Swift song makes me want to dance my way through the grocery store, the way peacock feathers glisten and give me courage and hope, and how forgiving myself lets me see the North Star.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Troy and then Natalie.
Thanks. I appreciate you saying the small things. It just made it a lot more playful. It's just fun. Today, I thank the gnats and flies, warm, lifting from the spring ground, lightened by the sun, the same sun I feel on my right side. My partner dropping by surprise, peeking out the door, smiling, I love you. The accident of turning video on and off and on, intending to unmute. The chicks beside the fence, in last fall's leaves chittering. The subtle inner chitter back to the video call, between regret, annoyance, embarrassment, the fear of missing out. Yes. Wow, I can hardly believe it. I'm thankful to the fear of missing out, without whom I'd not have thought to let the other fears alight. Now the birds, flittering in and out of the sun, shimmering. Out of the sun, shimmering gnats for a mouthful. I'm thankful they are here for each other, or we are here for each other. Thanks for the call from a friend playing phone tag, 4th try today, whom I let go to voicemail yet again in order to finish these words. The I am that chose to finish these words. The I am that is reading them. The I am listening. I'm thankful that we're here for each other.
Wonderful. Thank you, Troy. The sound in that poem, this beautiful. Natalie, and then Elena.
Okay. So alive sits my warm black coffee, giving a slight aroma. It's possible best. Furry clumps of hair everywhere. Don't get a dog, they say. Her eyes so blue and gentle, how could I possibly live without? An ant bit my toe. Ouch, that hurt. Hopefully I wasn't unkind when I shushed it off, possibly a late response. A phone call, sad day for mom. It's possible I helped by being gentle with her temple of mind. Endless possibilities, that is me. Today I think love. For me, no possibilities can be. If love didn't fuel me, fill me, expel from me, for I am love.
The movement with possible and possibly is lovely. You know how you came back to the today, I think. Beautiful. Elena, and then Sarah Pino.
I think you don't see Wade's little hand up. He's been patiently waiting. Should I let him
Okay.
go first?
Why don't we do this, Elena? Since you're already on, you go, and then we'll go to
Okay.
Wade, and then we go to Sarah Pino.
Thank you. I love this prompt. It was like, but I write really slow, so I'm going to continue it afterwards. Okay, I titled it Possible as a Word. Today I thank my eyes, the sky, the super bloom. I thank a rock that I thought was a baby sparrow. I blessed it anyway. The malachite egg nestled in my hand, the sound of your voice, the touch of reassurance, bright meadows and sandy beaches, the shift in a thought or feeling, the fragrance of forgiveness, the humanity of grief. I am most thankful for tiny seashells, even broken ones. Toast in the morning, toast in the evening, breakfast for dinner, Jordan almonds, the twinkle in your eye, being barefoot, writing poems like breathing. There is a word that expresses all my gratitude. I am a word, frequently on my lips, my raison d'etre, the word lovely. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Elena. The rock, was it rock sparrow that you blessed?
Yes, it was a little rock. I was waiting on the bus stop and I go, that bird is not moving. And I get scared when something is wounded. I should rush to help it. So I finally went up there and it was a rock. But I said, bless you, little rock. That looks like a bird.
Right, right. Wonderful. Thank you. Wade, and then Sarah Pino.
I don't exist. I'm a navel orange crate, empty, yellow cardboard, now dry, once wet, Sharpie code numbers written in 1990. I am a heavy glass award, etched name barely legible for a prize-winning book. I'm a graduation photo from 1958, black and white, linen lined, all hair product and possibility. I am a newspaper clipping from 1974, all wit and isolation. No, I am a divorce. I am love letters. I am revenge. Yes, I am a song. I am leaving on a jet plane. I am adventure. I am here today and gone tomorrow. Now I am a feeling. I am confounding and selfish and generous and lovely and loved. I don't exist.
I think the reach of that poem is a bit Whitman-esque. That's wonderful. Sarah Pino. Oh, and then I think it's Stacy after that, or Bryce, one of you, or both of you. Sarah, you're next.
Themes of possibility. Today, I thank the sunshine and the impossible blue after weeks of deluge that brought forth those tiny salmon pink buds, whom I also thank at that nature center, which, oh, I thank so heartily I can cycle to, despite that tremendous hill, because thankfully my newer bicycle is lighter than that dear old Schwinn that I was able to buy for only $200. Oh, thank you for that. In 2014 in Chicago and bring with me here to Los Angeles. Today, I thank my impossibly beautiful brother and his kiss on my cheek and the consistently grumpy expression of the barista's impossibly beautiful face. I thank the flexible weave on this chair embracing my pompas and the haphazard scattering of the books across bookshelves in this coffee shop. I thank the black bean patty and thank my freshly clean poof of hair. I thank earrings tapping gently against my earbuds. Tap, 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 tap. I thank heart reactions on Chinese faces on squares on my screen. I thank goosebumps down the dry skin on my arm when Samyak says possible. I thank carpal tunnel hardening my arm, reminding me of life and death and life and death. I thank the voice of LeVar Burton reading speculative fiction and the sensation of lukewarm oat milk splashed Americano on my tongue. I think the way this moment, these people, these words transform into a vision of a yellow dress and legs skipping over a curb and down a sidewalk and around a corner, all well with this great blue world. Thank you.
Wow. The level of details, that's amazing. Your use of the word impossibly in that poem reminds me of Liang Li's poem. You might already know this. His poem From Blossoms ends with from blossom to sweet blossom to sweet impossible blossom. That's beautiful. Bryce.
Sorry, can you say who that was again?
It's called From Blossoms by Liang Li. I'll write you in the chat at the end. Bryce and or Stacy.
Yeah, I wanted to honor the other Bryce Kessler in the chat who wanted to read their poem out loud, but I think is having some sound difficulties. So I'm happy to read on behalf of them.
And if that Bryce Kessler would put their actual name in the chat, then we can honor your actual name. And FYI, we're doing some Zoom research between now and next week. So we eliminate a couple of Bryce Kesslers.
Yeah, just one.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. It seems lately I'm made possible, no objecting to paths others have preached, crammed, ignoring me. It works best when faced with the exact opposite, even if it takes years. Study for money, for survival. So many years of grief, denial, to follow these rules. Finally now, I begin to explore, connecting with me like never before. But I'm still sorry, elders. Love.
Beautiful, beautiful. Forgive me if oh, sorry, Bryce, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's Sarah C, who is on the screen. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you, Sarah C. I might be butchering your name, Rimmel, but I see your hand.
Yes, Rimmel.
Rimmel.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. So my poem isn't finished yet, but I still would love to share it with all of you. Today, I thank the blossom of a rose, gentle and soft, resilient and brave. I thank the soft breath of dawn, the sweet kiss of dusk. I thank the rhythm, Bollywood music, and silver jhumkas, caramel macchiatos, and mango lassis. I thank sweet and sticky jalebi and Pakistani pomegranates. I thank my mother's embrace and my papa's laugh. I thank the fragrance of jasmine and the blush of moonlight. I thank parchment and pen for holding this broken humanity. I thank this earth for holding my story, for forgiving this wounded soul.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Stacy, looks like all the hands have blossomed and flown away.
They have. Samyak, I wanted to just make the connection for you and maybe some of the other guests that Rimmel is the Youth Poet Laureate who co-curated and selected these poems with Yaley this month. So thanks for being here, Rimmel. It was a beautiful poem.
Thank you so much. I just want to quickly apologize. I was somewhere where the connection was horrible, so that's why I had to join late. But I definitely did not want to miss this workshop, so my apologies.
No worries. So I just want to give a couple of reminders. You'll all be getting an email from Bryce that will give you a little bit more information about Samyak and upcoming events, and also an invitation to send your poems to include in the blog that we do. Next week, we're really excited that our final week will bring together Hala Liza Ghaffori, who is a friend of ours, translator of Rumi, poet, will be leading the meditation. And then Sheila McMullen will be talking about the poem and giving us our prompt. And the poem is Joy Harjo's Remember. We have some other upcoming events, but we'll write them in the email to you. We're going to end with another reading of the beautiful poem, Possible, but I just want to take a second to thank Samyak for being here. You're just lovely, lovely, lovely. And thank you, Yaley, for getting to go to cool writing retreats and meeting and inviting Samyak to make this poem really come to life for us. And thank all of you. Holy moly, more beauty. I feel like in the book that we end up doing with this month's poems, that the section dedicated to poems written about this prompt is going to be quite full. That was a lot of beauty. So we're going to put the poem back up for one last read.
Possible by Carlina Duan. Now my dress smells like rain, and all day long I've been eager to get back to my book, a novel about a young couple making pasta and falling into one another's skin, an Irish novel with names of cities that clunk around in my mouth, cities I'd never heard of, but now ride my skull like pleasant, individually wrapped candies, words with strange cactus-like shapes, words I star, Sligo, Caraclea. I turn the page. My mind goes stick, stick, stick. My brain goes hungry for more. Today I run through the rain in my wooden clogs and pleasure at the sound, thump, thump, thump. The entire green world of a street flashing down an open sewer drain. So alive, I think. Then remember what else makes me possible. Public libraries, cartilage, a good hardcover, a prayer I overhear my cab driver mumble while passing by a full school bus, goosebumps I get from reading my old journal, one sentence, another. My heart is a skull zone. Did I really write that? And oh, I am possible again. I am a fragrant, silly self. Today, I thank the worms who eat the dirt, who break down the soil, who make the lilacs possible and young, forever purpling, forever cradled in my palms as I cross Blakemore Avenue and it rains, rains, rains. And I think about eating up the alphabet, which has made a city into a word, into a sound, Sligo, which slides slinky-like into my brain, the dare alphabet, which has made me into a woman who will cross the street and love the lilacs and treasure the strange turn of the day, the strange turn of a word, a sentence, a curve, and a stroke of Black ink that, thank you, brought me here.
All right. Beautiful, beautiful. Much gratitude to everyone for being here. You'll hear from us by email. There'll be less Bryce Kesslers next week, and we will see you next week. More to come. Have a great day.